And here we go. Back on the other side of the pond from his break is Rish.
And that is Roland.
Refreshed and ready to go. Continuing our talk about global development and why I think Africa is the next go-to place in that sense. Rich, we both have been around the block in other countries, and if I just start from here saying that that vehicle manufacturer we talked about in last episode, Innoson, in Nigeria, produces 70% of their parts locally, and the others are sourced from German and Japanese suppliers.
So that should be pretty readily available parts on the shelf type deal.
Absolutely. When I first heard about this, and even before I started, moving a bit of education from my side to Nigeria, and even before I started my current job in education, one of the things that struck me about this is most Europeans or most white males don't think of Africa as a place where things like that would be happening. But here we are. And I'm looking at...
They have all the raw resources in the world. They just got to get the manufacturing, and they got to get the know-how and keep it there.
Yep. You see, that has been an issue
But the material, they got the materials.
Absolutely. There is a female rights activist from Nigeria. She's not very popular in her country or with the government, but she says...
Most activists aren't.
Yep, that's why she's gone. That's why she's outside of Nigeria. So,
I thought you meant like...
No.
Oh, that happens too.
No. Well, worse than that, she's also a rapper.
Oh, don't tell me she had to live in New Jersey.
A Nigerian female rapper. And she was how I got started looking into Nigeria in particular, or Africa in more general terms, is she said, raw materials wise, Nigeria is one of the richest countries in the world. But just like you said, there is nothing to do with it. And we, meaning Nigeria and the government, are giving it away. So
they need upward development.
Yeah, there is nothing.
They're at peg one. Have the stuff. But then you got to get into gathering, refining. Then you have to go into advanced refining, smelting, or if it's on the oil and gas side, breaking down, and getting your lighter parts of the barrel, your heavier parts, depending on what industry you're in.
When you look,
you got to get the work done.
So when you look at,
but it's hard to start when, because I mean, you can't get to manufacturing until you can get to refining. Refining is a precursor to manufacturing. If you want to keep everything in your country and control your own destiny, start to finish, you got to control all aspects.
Reasons. The infrastructure, the intellectual capacity, and outright the general interest or goodwill has not been there for generations. But that seems to be changing. When I look at, when I talk to people from Nigeria, intellectuals, students, people that are or have been educated to a certain level, they are all saying, well, I do want to see my country get better. I do want to make my country better. And when you then see people like this or organizations like this, Innoson is doing this kind of thing without the white men coming to save them from themselves, this is an all-African success. And I'm not impressed because, oh, it's a black company, it's a black guy running this. I'm impressed about, well, where there was nothing, there is now something that is very, very impressive. One other person has managed to create this, and it has been a huge success.
What impresses me is it is a indigenously made quality product, trade good. Like, now you're on your way. You're building your economy. You're
Yeah.
building your economy, but it's entirely indigenous. So that's what I was saying. You're controlling your destiny. If you're getting your own resources, if you're refining your own resources, if you're buying from refineries that your parent company owns or a sister company or just the guys down the road, if you start building these webs, and they're going to
Yep.
explode. I think it's there. I think
You see,
Africa,
it needs to get to a
it's,
critical point when it then starts all falling into place.
yeah.
Couple of years ago,
But
I
every
read
time
a
it
case
falls into
study.
place, we go shoot it up.
Yeah, no, this is something. Uh, now, I said this. This car manufacturer is completely non-interference from the white man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What happened years ago is any kind of dairy production we couldn't sell in Europe, we sold to Nigeria. Nigeria is still one of the largest importers of dairy products. While they have a fantastic dairy industry down there, that is not competitive with what we have here in the UK or in Europe. But 2 or 3 years ago, large initiative started backed by the government is local milk. So they are building the infrastructure to collect milk from the local farmers and also to sell it locally. And it is starting to get a reasonable market share, which means then you get the money from the product, you can invest and build more capacity. And again, this is an all African, or in this case, all Nigerian success. And even in this case, even replacing what the white man put there. And I feel like if there is enough interest locally to get shit done, let people do it. And the way any way we can support this by saying, okay, let's reduce our exports of dairy products to African countries so they can build their own dairy industry. Let's invest money from trade with foreign countries into infrastructure. So, and again, when you see that, when you talk with intellectuals from Nigeria or from people that have more than just 3 years homeschooling, so to speak,
Yeah.
they are all not stupid. Yeah, you have people that are more laid back, but generally what happens once the people that are more laid back realize, well, I am falling behind, I am not going to reach my goal, they work twice as hard, and the others, they work twice and 5 times as hard as you or me would in the same situation. Yeah. So from education side, for example, I don't know how many Africans are going to the US to study, but here in the UK, it is quite a few. And when you hear on a national level what's going on, is how many people are basically having the whole family put together all the savings they have so that the son or the daughter can go and study in the UK. And that these people are very determined, very successful, and bring back new knowledge, new expertise, and their energy to a worthy cause of developing their home. So that is something where I say, well, on one hand, we don't want to repeat our own mistakes when dealing with or putting our manufacturing, our production that we want cheap into countries that are not only far away, which is a risk in itself, concentrating it, which is a second risk, and then realizing, well, these are not the countries or the people that we share many values with. So you have an inherent conflict in values already. So, and when I look at, or when I compare my own values to or with the values that the people in Africa that I'm dealing with on a daily basis have, I see they are much closer aligned to how I'm feeling about things, how they are feeling about things. And I'm looking at, why are we going hundreds and thousands of miles into the wrong direction, while people that more often than not agree with us are living right next door?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm all for a lot of U.S. manufacturing, moving away from, China and seeing it come over to the northern hemisphere. Let's see it, some of the higher end stuff. Let's see it go to the U.S. Some of the moderate stuff, let's see it go to Canada and Mexico. Some of the lower tier stuff, let's start getting some infrastructure, down around Honduras and Guatemala. Because like a lot of the migration problems that we're having now aren't Mexicans anymore. Now they're the smaller Central American countries that are fleeing gang violence, assassinations, political corruption, drugs. So if we can deal with people who have the same ideology as us, which the Mexican people and the American people are very close with their ideology. Most of North America is. So if that money can stay over here and we can have stronger neighbors and a more prosperous continent, that only helps us and everyone around us in our own neighborhood.
Yep. Especially the relationship. I mean, when you look at, just as we were saying, Mexico and the US, they are never going to be 100% friends with each other. There's always going to be some forms of disagreement with one another. But
we took half
as you're
their country
saying,
in a war. They
yeah.
remember.
So when you look at it, when you look beyond those disagreements, there is more commonality, as you are saying. And the average Mexican thinks exactly, or almost exactly, very closely from a Mexican perspective, as an American thinks from an American perspective.
Yeah, but you look a lot highly Christian, salt to the earth, blue collar type, known for getting it done, nose to the grindstone, farming, agriculture, cattle ranching, goat, sheep. These are all things that we share.
Yep. So there is that kind of thinking. And as I said, the other side of the story of not repeating the mistakes is thinking about, should we actually get ourselves involved in political turmoils of countries that are thousands of miles away? Probably not. And especially Americans do have a different perspective of getting involved in politics in Asia. Yeah.
We were invited to most of those countries.
Well, I mean,
Some
I
of
see
them.
an episode about the Vietnam War coming, but looking at it and using the Vietnam War as an example, actually, is the major reason why this did not work out, how people in the Pentagon planned it, was a complete non-appreciation of how the average Vietnamese person thinks and what they think. Yeah. So there is, I think, God, who was that? One of the generals of the Vietnam War said, in order to win in Vietnam, we have to completely depopulate the country. And that is not possible.
Well, James Cameron, the director, Avatar. If you think about it, it's a cute little way that they've thrown it in there, but they stick the main character, Jake, who comes around to the other side, typical cinema for today. He's doing his video diary, and he said the people he's with, the aliens, these people don't want to be anything like us. We're not going to win them over with light beer.
Yep.
But it's just funny, and I think that maybe that was James Cameron, because he's pretty socially conscious. I think he might have smirked a little bit about that, because it's clearly a dig.
Yeah. As the other thing, particularly in Asia, one of the mistakes is Asian culture per se is, probably with the exception of Japan, is
They're
very
a little
much
xenophobic too.
things are
Seeing
changing in Japan very, very
rapidly.
But
I've
what I
been
was
seeing
going
some
to say,
documentaries about that. Sorry to interrupt.
now there is a couple of things. It's not perfect, but I can tell you some really interesting trajectories in Japan. But in generally, Asians, with the exception of Japan, let's just say you drop a fridge from your C5, yeah. The fridge lands in a Vietnamese village. The fridge works. The Vietnamese people of then, during the Vietnam War, wouldn't look at it from the perspective, what is that? How does it work? How do I build another one? They would be looking at it, oh, this is here, this keeps things cool. And if it stops working, it stops working. Yeah. There is, how do I say?
Not the manufacturer mindset.
It is not a mindset of, I control the reality around me. I can change these realities. I can do something by my own power. It is, reality is there and I have to deal with it. I have to accept it. And that is simply a thing you won't get into people very easily, and not in a short period of time. Now, as you mentioned, Asia, not only Japan, Asia is pretty much as countries, they are very homogeneous in terms of racial homogeneity. And the most homogeneous countries and the most xenophobic countries in Asia are China and Japan.
Well,
Now,
I just heard there's a lot of businesses where, like, especially bars and nightclubs in Japan, that there's a sign that says Japanese only.
yep.
That's just the way they want it.
Still happening with one thing. As we were talking about China and Comrade Xi's xenophobic nationalism, one of the first policies he pushed through, against advice from anybody, kick foreign English teachers out. A lot of them ended up in Japan. And when the Chinese realized, oh, we fucked this up, we need to get those people back. People, now, not trying to talk down on people, but the quality of English teachers, and not only the ability to teach English, but also, let's just say, a lot of these teachers are not the people you would want to socialize with. You as a person, you wouldn't want to socialize with a person like that. And there is the general impression among Chinese people, foreign English teachers are there for money, for drinking, and for sex. And it is sad to say they are not so wrong about it.
That's terrible.
I mean, there is certainly a lot of components there, and there are a lot of people that genuinely are interested in Asian culture. But when they realize, well, I'm getting paid, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a month, but I can't do anything with it. I can't even take it back home because of monetary controls. People start to get more and more disillusioned with the situation. And when you have nothing going there, when you are Just for example, I don't know if you are a person going to the pub drinking with your buddies, or that you socialize, I don't know, going to the shooting range. Yeah, you don't have anything like that in China. Yeah, you literally can only go drinking in special places where the people speak English, where they serve some copy of Western food and beer, and it is bloody expensive. So literally, you have the same cost of living and same income level as a Western expatriate in China.
So why be there?
Exactly.
I go to Singapore, or Malaysia, or Taiwan.
Now, with this situation, the Japanese realized, well, there's a lot of foreign English teachers coming. Why? They looked at the situation in China. They saw that, well, the English teachers that are going there now are not the kind of people we would want to have around. And if that is happening with very attractive working conditions, we better get our act together and start being more inclusive. And as you're saying, you still have this kind of thing, Japanese only. You have, on the other side, more and more establishments that are saying, well, screw that. First of all, it's bad for business, especially when you are an expatriate. You get a privileged salary. And once you are settled in, the first stages of getting settled in Japan are really, really difficult. But once you are there and settled, there is on the same documentary site, there is a documentary. I need to find it again. There is a Black American guy that went to Japan as an English teacher and is now the top sales representative of a manufacturing company there.
Really?
Yep.
Went over there and crushed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely not the experience everybody has. So one thing that is
probably not.
Probably not. And I'm not talking about black people. So,
No, I'm talking about not Japanese people.
all over Asia, black people are basically, frowned upon. And well, as you're saying, non-Japanese.
I mean, we're frowned upon. What you're just saying, like more than people of our complexion.
Yep.
Because we're not looked upon very favorably either.
Yep. So things are changing. And so, for example, well, I'm going with another country in a moment, but in Japan, Japan has also realized that for very, very crucial jobs in healthcare, in construction, they don't have enough people. So they started predominantly in Asia, in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in Vietnam, to recruit people, and they radically changed their immigration policy. I think it's now 8 years you have to live with a legal title in Japan, and you can get Japanese citizenship if you wanted that. Yeah. And at the educational side,
not if you're Muslim.
Well,
it's their country, man. I mean, it's a democracy. They're voting these laws in. If they don't want certain people in their country, they're doing it.
Well, I think in China they are very open about it. But another thing, what you see in Japan is, as you say, interracial relationships are being frowned upon, or were frowned upon. Where things are changing right now in Asia is in the Philippines. And a friend of mine said, you can, if the girl you're with is keen on you and wants to get married to you, don't. If she doesn't give a rat's ass about you, that's the one you want. So, for example, in the Philippines, the educated people, they have no problem with you and me. They are just like, well, you better bring something to the table as well, because I'm educated. I can pay for myself. I don't need you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, whereas the predominant view of Western men and Asian women, because that is how these relationships usually are, over 90% in interracial relationships where the man is white and the woman is a different race. It is a form of dependency and still seeing the man as the sole breadwinner of the household, whereas educated circles in Asian countries are you wouldn't believe it how emancipated and equality minded the real educated Asians are. And there is a whole a paradigm shift, or has been a paradigm shift between 2010, 2015, and now in Japanese society. More one of the things where just like you said, Japanese only, the so-called soaplands, where you get soap massage. More and more of these establishments are actively inviting expatriates in terms of, well, it's money. Doesn't matter. And as long, look, in every place, no matter where you go, if you don't behave, you get into trouble. If I don't behave in the States, I get into trouble. If I don't behave here, I get into trouble. That's nothing new. And it's really, as you're saying, it's their place. I am not here to tell people what to do and do whatever I want because I pay. It's also a general respect towards the majority of people around you.
Well, it's like when I was living in Canada, when I was out, hang out with the locals, and after a night of drinking, sometimes they would have some nefarious ideas and they would say, "Hey, you coming?" And I would say, "No." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm a guest. Like, you're citizens. I will get deported. Like, you don't understand. I can't do anything like that." And it was hijinks and all in good fun, but still something that they would get a slap on the wrist for. I would be deported immediately and banned from re-entry. So because it's their country, I'm not a citizen.
I mean, there's well, funny enough, I know people who have been blacklisted from entering the UK. So and let me tell you, here in the UK, you have to go, or in Europe in general, you have to do some pretty rough stuff to be told, F off, don't come back. So, and then enforcing that, getting you out is not always done. So, yeah.
Well, everyone knows you can't enter a country illegally.
Oh, well, you can, but whether you can stay is a different question. So, how do I say this? Look, the special thing about Japan and why things are changing in Japan or have been changing. Well, first of all, the predominant Japanese attitude towards the globalized world is we trade with everyone, but the changes that this would bring to our institutions, to our culture, we don't want that. And more, the consecutive governments for the last 10, 20 years have realized, well, this is not working. So let's just say, what is the most successful export of the US? Hamburgers and Coca-Cola. So And this is just the kind of thing. Let's just say,
I thought it was bacon and freedom.
nope. You win more people with Coke and burgers. Or what I mean to say with that is, let's just say you are a young Asian boy, girl, and you go out. The typical thing for Chinese, for example, I study in the US, I study in the UK. So fun fact, statistics do lie to some degree. We have in the UK more Chinese students after COVID than what we had before. Not only because, well, there is 2 or 3 years where they couldn't come. No, they still want to come. They still want out. And a large number of people want out. And student seems to be the only way to securely say, I can. Yeah. So now these people come from wherever, not only China, but they come with a certain impression about the States, the UK, Europe, the outside world. And one thing that has been striking me last September when university started, all the Chinese were masked up. You would be thinking this is a country where chemical warfare is a daily occurrence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And within 3 months, none of them is wearing mask now. So literally, I was surprised the day before when we went out. I saw one, and yes, that one was Chinese, wearing a mask. Everybody else, Asian, Westerners, Africans, nobody's wearing a mask. Now, let's just say these people that come from abroad, they have an impression. That impression gets changed by reality. Yeah, we have burgers, fries, Coke, and freedom, and they go back to their country. What do you think these people are taking back? It's not the education. What they take back is an idea of, well, what else was I wrong about? What else have we in my home country been wrong about? And why can I not have the same level of affluence and carelessness, if you want, than those people? Especially in, let's just say in China. Yeah, China #1, America shit. You go to the States and you see it's actually not the case. Then you go back and you're literally asking the question, or you would go to jail if you openly ask the question, yeah, why do I not get the same thing? Why can I not have the same thing? Especially if we Chinese are so much better than the Western world. Why can we not have that? And
well, yeah, same thing. What was it? Was it Gorbachev? He came to the U.S. with his wife, and his wife was trying to buy all the meat at a U.S. grocery store because she's like, "Oh, it's meat day. They have meat. We have to get meat. They won't have any later." We're like,
what I know about that was after Yeltsin took over. Yeltsin visited the US.
Okay. Yeah.
And he went to a grocery store and he saw the cash register there.
He thought it was BS. He thought it was staged. He thought it was fake.
Well, he first thought this is fake. They are. But he and his security detail went into a random store and he's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. And we are talking about, yeah, Podunk USA. This is my cash register. Kind of what the fuck.
Yeah.
Because you see,
and just food everywhere.
Yeah. And you can't consistently fake that. Yeah. Going back to the average student experience here, they are not only taking education back. They are not only taking ideas about whatever they study back. They are taking back with them, if my country is so much better than the country I studied in, why do I have to go study there?
Mm-hmm.
Why do these people seem so much happier, carefree, have all the stuff that I want, and I can't have it here. So
Hey, there's a reason why you should never date one of your exes. You know the problems.
that is, well, don't get me started on that one. But it's also going back to what we said about not making the same mistake twice.
Yeah, like you were born in China the first time, you didn't have a choice. But if you go to school in the UK or France or Germany or anywhere,
Well, a
and
lot
then
of
you think about it and you're like, well, I'm happier with this lifestyle. Why would you go back to be miserable?
that's one big issue, especially the states. The states has. Yes, people do want to stay, not only in the States, in the UK. And the problem that the States especially has, a lot of these people just live their Chinese life in the States. So there is now, when you go to the big Asian immigration hubs on the West Coast, California, you not only have the usual CCP surveillance of people, you have Chinese that are monitoring and attempting to silence other Chinese that are more outspoken about things.
Well, you have regular Chinese that live here now that are reporting on all the other Chinese in case they ever got to go home.
Yep. There is one thing, and this shows how wrong we are in our approach. There is a Chinese police station not 100 kilometers from where I am right now.
Yeah, we talked about that in a previous episode.
British government knows it. British government decided not to do anything about it because, and get this, the Chinese will retaliate. Let's just play this game. How many British are in China that they can get to? How many Chinese are here?
How many
in
British
the UK?
Police stations are there in China?
Quite a few, and you have different kinds of police. You have different kinds of police. So the police I was dealing with, and again, this is something you might find, or people might find surprising. Why do Chinese people take government jobs or jobs in the police? It's not they are interested in the job. Their perception is, well, I'm getting paid on a regular basis. I'm having food on a regular basis. It's for my safety. Yeah. They have their interests and their ideology absolutely does not align with the requirements of the job. Yeah.
Right.
So
well, they're not doing it to protect and serve. They're doing it out of an interest of self-preservation.
That's one thing. Then the police
they're
station
protecting
that
and serving
I
their
had
family.
to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, basically every foreigner has to register with the police. Yeah, not only in China, in the States, in the UK. You have to go to your local police station and say, here I am. Yeah. So, and as a foreigner in China, you get a printout from the police that says this is your address. Yeah. At any stage, that branch of the public security knows where you are or where you live. And that is called PSB, Public Security Bureau. And the normal patrol police is not necessarily in the same building. In my case, it was. At first, it was not. I had to go far away to the registration station. And then they put it all together in a more modern building in city center. So one entrance was for people like me and for Chinese to register. Well, I am here now. And the other thing was your basic, what you would call a police station in the States or in Germany or in the UK. Yeah. Police officers that get in their patrol car and enforce public security. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know is the budget for internal security, which includes PSB and the domestic police force essentially is, depending on who you ask, up to 3 times as high as the military budget.
Wow.
So, well, it is higher, and like I said, depending on who you ask, up to 3 times as high is the numbers you're getting. So yes, the Chinese government is more afraid of its own people than what they are afraid of foreign invaders. And judging from the rhetoric, fuck me, yeah. So I mean, in the States, police is, especially compared to the UK, very, very militarized. So
well, Steve, in America, that we're used to it.
Yep.
Our police have assault vehicles. They
Yeah.
have vests. They have military hardware. They have military training.
I mean, a lot of
not all of our police, but there's plenty.
Yeah. I mean, the career for in law enforcement, if you have been in the military, that is your next step after being discharged. Yeah. Or for a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, there is jobs in the police and there is ex-military personnel that makes fantastic police officers. Yeah. That is not to say. But the setup is still, as you were saying earlier on, protect and serve. Yeah, it's not always the case when we're looking at that. And the other side where I want to hold up the flag for the police is when you are on the receiving end, and in the US, as everybody thinks, everybody has a gun. Yeah. So, and you are there to protect the public from people that have guns. Yeah. With people that are, for example, mentally not fit. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, you never know. All sorts of things can happen.
It's a general thing for a police officer. You don't know if you come home. Yeah. Whether it's in the US, Germany, or wherever. But you have very different, still a very different factor, and that is the protect and serve idea. Police is the kind of force you use to police the citizenry. Yeah. In China, the approach of policing is not to protect or to serve. The protection, yes, on paper, perhaps it's even there, but it is more like make sure these buggers don't do anything that we don't want them to do. It's a very different setup in terms of not serve and protect, but protect and control. And in terms of protection,
or herd y'all into this direction.
Yep.
Get in your cattle, or get in your cage. I mean, get in your apartment.
Yeah. And well, mentioning that, at the beginning of the recent lockdowns, it was still the police welding or supported by the police, people being welded into their apartments. Yeah, you have a cage built around your apartment so you don't get out. So there were several incidents in a province that is quite affluent in China, where people actually called the police. I mean, what is the first thing that you do if somebody does something to you that they're not supposed to do? You call the police. Yeah, right. No matter if you're American, German, or Chinese. So the people called the police. These people are doing something that they are not supposed to do. Or in one case that I heard about is that these people that were coming.
The police don't always get called first in America.
No, not necessarily. And what happened here is, in that particular case, people that were about to be welded into their apartment block went out and started beating the crap out of those people. Police came around and said, what the fuck's going on here? well, what's going on here? And then the people that were trying to weld the citizenry into their apartment said, well, we have been ordered. Where is that order? Yeah, we don't have it. Well, it ended up unprecedented in contemporary Chinese history. The people that had a mandate from the government to do that were arrested, taken to the station where it was found out, yes, actually that's supposed to happen. And the police said, no, without written orders, these people have no right to do that. So, and then came the whole protest thing, and we are lifting all lockdowns. So it didn't happen in the end. But this is another example of, I mean, when you go out or when you go into a situation in the States, you have a legal framework that you know these are the rules. Yeah, this is what's going to happen. And the rules in China are much more flexible in terms of, well, what does someone above me want to happen? So they in the States, in the UK, it is rule of law. And in China, it is much more the approach of rule by law. Well, something happened, we need a law, now we do that. Yeah. Well, this is a thing, this kind of approach and this kind of top-down governance without people having a say about it is one reason why Chinese dominance has failed and is crumbling in essence. So, but that is more to the thing what I was saying earlier around between our episodes is anything with an ideology as an underlying rationale is reaching the point where ideology is enforced upon people for ideology's sake. There is no rational reason for it. And once that point is reached, resistance starts to happen. Yeah. So we have now a couple of weeks ago, I read an article that compared to a situation, let's use the States and black people in the States again. Since diversity hiring, affirmative action, and Black Lives Matter, living standards of black people have decreased. For me, as a person that uses their brain, is now thinking, yeah, wait a second, we are pushing the black agenda and things get worse. Maybe we are not doing this right. Yeah. Or when it comes to logic being selectively enforced, when it comes to logic being illogical in itself. I mean, we had this conversation about the swimmer, Leah Thomas. We have now, I think the latest thing about this was the pay dispute in the women's NBA in the US. And as soon as people looked at it, they were like, yeah, wait a second, we are subsidizing every player as owners of these franchises with X amount of money. And they want more? Then as you said, the solution of full total equality is make it so. Yeah. And literally enforce a 50% mandate in jobs where people don't want to go. For example, how many women are in construction?
Not actually, you're starting to see more female heavy equipment operators, but as far as the laborers go, your bricklayers, your rebar guys, your pipe fitters, brick masons, it's male. All of it's backbreaking and it's male dominated.
And I will say that when I lived in Germany, the car dealership I brought my car to for maintenance had one female mechanic. And work is of a whole better quality level when she is on your car.
But yeah, because her work is the most scrutinized by her peers, management.
Not only by her peers, by herself. So one thing I found, if a woman goes into a male-dominated job, she is way better than the average male on it. She is out-competing most of the top males. Yeah.
They don't say that in kickboxing much.
The other thing I'm looking at is
No retort.
how many male babysitters have you and your wife ever hired?
No, but see, there's also a stigmatism of
Yep.
becoming a male nurse because people look at you like you're a pedophile. The
Exactly my point.
the stigma of being a male nurse at a hospital didn't go away till like 20 years ago.
Yep.
So
still, most of the, well, in the doctor level, we have a very diverse selection here in the UK. I have to say that. But at the nurse level, predominantly female, predominantly white.
see, we have a lot of African American nurses and female, but we have a lot of male nurses now too.
There is no reason why a man can't be a good nurse. Yeah, it is just, what are people interested in? What are people good at? And neither of the two has any bearing by gender, religion, skin color.
Well, a lot of the male nurses that I met, they have a military background where they were either corpsmen or they were medics, and they had applicable training and they needed a skill outside of the military, and they weren't suited to be doctors, although the military, of course, does have doctors and surgeons. These guys took a couple of classes and converted their knowledge that they already had, and then they got great jobs in the nursing field.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, one thing that, or possibly not, forget about what I was going to say. But again, when you really go down to enforcing total equality, quality of work will decline, because for some jobs, the recruitment pool in a certain gender, skin color, religion will be much smaller. That's just how it is. And how one thing I really want to ask, because no one will guess that. Well, first of all, if the white male supremacist patriarchy, I think I have put everything in this sentence now, is so bad, how many males graduate with a master's degree in the US per 100 females? Give me a number.
0.
No, it's not that bad. So you would think that males out-dominate in that category of a master's degree. Yeah, the second degree.
No,
you can
I
get.
would think that like it would be on par, like 0 plus or minus. I would think that what I'm saying by 0 is I think the discrepancy, it should be across the board, male and female, it should be somewhere close to each other for who gets a master's degree.
Not close.
What is it? Is it women?
Women, 100 per 100 degrees we give to females, 100 master's degree we give to females, we give 70 to males.
Oh, I misunderstood the question. I thought you were asking the difference in it. So there's a 30% difference.
Yep. When you look at social science subjects, you have universities where the student population is almost 100% female.
Really?
Yeah. And we are pushing, or we are telling young women, go into sciences, go into, I don't know, physics, go into real hardcore sciences. Yeah. Don't have a family. Your career is more important. And when people reach the age of 40, 50, they realize, well, maybe I have a great career. I have something to say about that as well. But I have totally missed out on social life. And it doesn't matter if you are male or female. You realize that when you are 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Another thing about, I was saying earlier around Thomas Sobel, there's apparently a study, I just looked it up, about a study started in Stanford about 100 years ago about different outcomes from an equality perspective. So what Stanford did is they gave people an IQ test. And only if you scored 140 or above, you were taken into the study. And that is about 1% of the population that can reach that.
Damn.
Yeah. So what happened is 2 people that failed to make the score later went on to win Nobel Prizes. Oops, number 1. Oops, number 2 is when people started looking at achievements of those about 1,500 people that were then studied for their career. They found out when you grade them into 10% deciles, that the lowest decile, the lowest performers had a massively lower performance or career outcome than the top percentages. So even if you have a very equal starting ground intellectually, about one being the 1% of intellectuals, you can have very, very different outcomes. So you will, under no circumstances, it is realistically not possible that 2 people, no matter how equal their starting ground is, will end up in exactly the same position 10, 20, 30 years later.
Well, that's also because then you have to factor in environmental influences.
Well, when you minimize those factors, yeah, but environmental influence was later on determined as one of the influential factors. So, for example, people with an academic family background had higher achievements than those who had no academic family background. And you don't have to go very far. I'm the first person in my family to go to university. Yeah. So, and yet when you compare people that are supposedly at the same running ground, at the same start of the 100-meter race, you will have massive disparities at the end. So even if you, so logically speaking, even if you would enforce 50% mandate male female in every single job, first of all, quality of work would go down because not enough males are interested in certain jobs, not enough women are interested in other jobs. So let's enforce that. Force people to do things that they don't want. Performance goes further down. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they have a saying like that in the States, but in Germany we have a saying, if you get rid of the underperformers, your performance of the 20% that are the top performers will go beyond anything you can imagine. Yeah. So in terms of what I said at one job that I had is, if you get rid of that, if you get that person out of my team, I will double my output. I will double my productivity because that person is a drain on us.
See, the saying for that here is, we call it addition by subtraction.
Yep. It is those synergies.
But that means, that phrase means exactly what you're saying. Let's cut the dead weight and let them, you know, you can have 1,000 balloons if they're all hooked to one seagoing anchor from an aircraft carrier. If you get rid of that one anchor, those 10,000 balloons will fly.
Exactly. So we are looking at factors such as, again, gender, skin color, religion, that for the most part are absolutely unimportant for anything that you would call performance. And not only is it irrelevant for performance, we are doubling down and enforcing it more and more and more. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's not going to go well. And well, what I'm seeing right now for the last months, more and more people are speaking up about it and saying this is complete bollocks. Stop doing that kind of stupid thing.
Yeah. Well, sounds like we got it to try a pretty good place to stop. Once again, Rish, he's rolling, and we will see you again shortly.